Joining me now is former Obama campaign manager and MSNBC political analyst David Plouffe in the flesh, and former U.S. Senator, also an MSNBC political analyst, the great Claire McCaskill. Thank you both for being here. Claire, I wonder what you make of the backdrop of the Israel-Hamas war and the Republican, is the right word ineptitude, in sort of getting their act together to figure out, A, who's going to lead their conference, and then B, how to assist in something that I think they understand is of grave importance.
Well, I think what this shows is this is beyond ineptitude, because typically when there is a crisis, parties set aside some of their differences and come together to unify around causes that are more important, frankly, than, you know, who is the next speaker? Do they have 217 or 218 votes? They're not doing that. I mean, let's count the ways the Republican Party is not uniting right now with Democrats in support of Israel and against the atrocious terrorist activity of beheading toddlers by an extremist group. First, we have a Republican senator who will not allow the confirmation of our most important military leaders. Next, we have a Republican House that can't come together long enough to even pick a leader to allow support for Israel to pass through that legislative body. And then tonight, we have the former president, Republican president, criticizing Israel behind a podium at a political speech. So it is frankly amazing to me that anybody in the Republican Party would be critical at all of the Democrats and their support for Israel and the president and his support for Israel when this is going on in wide open view of the entire world.
Yeah, let's talk about the Trump of this all for a minute, David. Trump endorsed Jim Jordan, who only got 45% of the Republican conference's vote in this closed-door session. It was a secret ballot. And I find this quote from John Feary, GOP consultant, in the Post sort of ironic. Having outsiders meddle in insider elections never goes well, says Feary, and Trump is the ultimate outsider, and frankly, most members don't like him very much. Oh, really? What have y'all been doing for the last, 8 years? Do you read anything into the fact that Trump's pick effectively did not win, went nowhere? Is there anything more to read in that other than, oh, wow, a secret ballot's useful in finding out how Republicans really feel?
Well, it continues his losing streak. So since the 2016 election, he's kind of lost everything.
Yeah.
The 18 and 22 elections, disasters, his imprints on that. He lost to Joe Biden in 20. A lot of his Senate candidates either lost in primaries or cost them the Senate. So, the losing continues. I think what it shows is, they're kind of like Jell-O in public. Maybe behind the scenes, they don't march entirely to his drummer. So it's really pathetic, actually. So it shows maybe a little bit of inclination. But obviously, he's heading to be the Republican nominee, absent some surprise, which could happen.
Yeah.
Still time for a surprise. As Claire remembers, back in 2007, at this time, really October, Barack Obama was given up for dead by most political observers. So it happens. But they're all going to get in line behind him. I do think Claire's point, when you listen to all that parade of horribles, there are going to be voters out there, even who might be unhappy with Joe Biden, who are like, do I really want to throw back in with Trump? And when you see the Republican Party around him, completely so dysfunctional and so irresponsible, I don't think it's helpful to him at all.
You think that this is a true inflection point, actually, in terms of how voters cast their ballots, potentially?
I don't know. I mean, a lot could happen. We have 17 political lifetimes between now and when votes start being cast this time next fall, but it's not helpful.
Claire, what of Steve Scalise as a potential Speaker of the House? He is certainly, on paper, more radical than Kevin McCarthy was, even though he is positioned, in contrast to Jim Jordan, as somehow more moderate. What do you think about that potential leadership?
Well, it's interesting to me. They were going to try to rush a vote today, and then all of a sudden, Steve Scalise hit a pothole. And it is not clear to me that he's going to get the votes he needs. I'm not sure this will be resolved tomorrow or even the next day. It's not going to shock me if we end up having another third-party candidate. And all of this dysfunction in the Republican Party really hurts them and hurts the Republican nominee for president. But I would also say, well, I want to underscore the point David made. We are a long way from the election. And one thing I know for sure, I came to the U.S. Senate because a president was very unpopular over the Iraq War. So depending on how these hot spots play out, both Ukraine and now Israel, that is really remains to be seen. And Joe Biden can't escape one thing. He is the president right now. And to any extent, these wars devolve into long, painful exercises that may involve American life before it's all over. I think it is way too early to decide what's going to happen next November.
Yeah, David, could you elaborate on what you're feeling, in terms of the war we know there are American, there are casualties, there are likely American hostages. We're sending over some military support. This is not going to be a war without any American fingerprints on it. And how risky is that for Joe Biden?
Well, it's risky, but I think you just have to do the right thing. And I think he's been speaking every day. He probably should continue to do that, inform people about what we're doing to help with the situation generally, with these American hostages specifically. So you just have to stay on it. And the politics, I think you almost have to set aside. Like having worked in the White House, it's the last thing on your mind. They're working 24 hours a day. They're feeling the pressure. Lives are at stake. And if you do the right things and take it seriously, and again, this is the thing about Trump. I mean, he didn't take the pandemic seriously. He doesn't take anything seriously. Thank God we have a president there. As tricky as the situation is, it doesn't guarantee at all a positive outcome. But they're going to make good decisions and do everything they can to try and get as positive a result here as possible.
As positive as. I think that's the key part of that phrase. Claire, David, thank you so much for your wise words and assessment of this insane situation. I appreciate your time.